Hey, Nancy Rommelman here, coming to you from Paloma Media Studios in Chinatown. I am going to read for you my first ever feature article that appeared on the cover of the LA Weekly in 1994 and was re-released sort of as a single that you can buy on Amazon. I'm going to read it for you now with a little intro that I added when it was re-released in 2014. Destination Gacy. A cross-country journey to shake the devil's hand. When I wrote what was then called Going to Gacy in 1994, John Wayne Gacy was the most notorious serial killer in America. He still is. We are revolted by his crimes, yet remain transfixed by how a human being can commit such acts. We brand him a monster, lock him away, execute him, and yet the question remains. Whether my meeting Gacy helped bring the man and his motivations into focus, you may decide for yourself. Another thing that has not changed in the past 20 years is Americans' stance on capital punishment. Some believe execution is the only just penalty for taking a life. Others insist the death penalty is dead wrong. As a journalist who chronicles murder sometimes, I have seen people's blood burn for revenge in the wake of a killing. I have felt it myself, but then the blood cools. One fact is irrefutable. Keeping a prisoner on death row is expensive. The state of California, for instance, spends $90,000 a year more on a death row prisoner than on a regular inmate, and the cost of court dates and appeals can run into the millions and stretch over decades. When looking for consensus, we might let fiscal responsibility rule the day if our hearts remain conflicted. And here's the story. I once read that serial killer John Wayne Gacy's brain was missing. Someone had stolen it. Following Gacy's execution, the brain had supposedly been extracted in hopes that probing the gray matter might shed some light on why killers kill. A later newspaper story reported that a forensic psychiatrist dissected the brain and still has it. Regardless of what actually happened to Gacy's gray matter, the public had an insatiable appetite for him when he lived. Post-mortem, we were still trying to get a piece of him. I've got mine. A pack of prison cigarettes, and several photographs from when I visited Gacy in May 1994. The following week, the number one serial killer of that time was executed for 33 murders he committed throughout the 1970s, most of which included handcuffing young men and boys, some of whom were lured to Gacy's home for paid sex, others with the promise of employment in Gacy's contracting company, to a specially made board, then choking them to death with a knotted rope over a matter of hours or sometimes days. He stuffed 27 of the bodies into the crawl space beneath his Chicago area home. 2 more were found buried in his yard, 4 in a nearby river. Once a pillar of his Des Plaines, Illinois community, Gacy denied the murders. In 1980, a jury found otherwise and sentenced Gacy to death. His fight to postpone the inevitable ended when the state of Illinois rejected his final appeal. The May 10th execution took place as scheduled. Before his death, family, friends, and people he had never met besieged Gacy with requests. One came from a 26-year-old musician and artist from Los Angeles, with whom Gacy had been corresponding for 2 years. On Gacy's urging, Rick Gaez made the 1,500-mile journey to visit his pen pal, in quotes, before it was too late. Rick asked me, a casual friend who was also a writer, to accompany him and document the encounter. I took a lot of flack for it. Wasn't I scared? Wasn't I sickened? How could I explain I was looking forward to it? A crime TV junkie, I could, at the time, have told you every schedule change America's Most Wanted had made in the previous 2 years. The reenactments, especially the ones involving murder, drove me off the couch, screaming at the perp's mugshot. No matter how heinous the crime, I looked. Meeting Gacy meant facing the horror I'd insofar only encountered on the nightly news, my front door double-locked. The anticipation made me feel as though I were filling up with helium. Certainly, I had never knowingly courted a murderer. Going to Gacy meant walking into the den of the beast. Shackled, defanged, yes, but even under neutralized circumstances, the idea was electrifying. We took to the road to meet a killer. Driving out of Los Angeles in a rented Ford Tempo, I try to remember Gacy's 1978 arrest. I vaguely recall some big white man in handcuffs, sheet-draped bodies bobbing past prying cameras. But it was a world away from New York City, where we'd recently been held hostage by local serial killer Son of Sam. Daring to stay out past midnight became a nervy drama. The killer could be anywhere. With our nightly lives hanging in the balance, the city crackled. Cruising through Death Valley, Rick agrees that part of Gacy's allure was the proximity to danger, but he insists his initial contact with Gacy was predicated on something more tangible, the killer's artwork. In 1992, I saw one of Gacy's paintings. It was odd, really bright and flat, Rick says. I knew I wanted one, so I wrote him and enclosed a picture of myself when I was 17, really clean-shaven and pretty and boyish, figuring that's about what he goes for. Rick knew he fit the profile of Gacy's victims, young, good-looking, and used this to entice Gacy into painting his portrait, which Gacy did at a discount. But why would Rick, the product of a close-knit Catholic Latino family, a popular guy very much on the LA scene, keep communicating with a middle-aged sex offender and serial killer? I've always been attracted to extremes, to deviance. Like my father said, you never know how cold the devil's hand is until you shake it. When I got the opportunity to shake Gacy's hand, I took it. People think it's wrong, but that's a judgment call on their part. Why shouldn't I communicate with this guy? He's part of 20th century history, and I'm getting to meet him. But why Gacy? Why not the Pope? The Pope is boring, and anyway, meeting Gacy puts a little black in my life. Growing up in Orange County, life was comfortable, boring, suburban. Writing Gacy was like becoming a punker when we were kids, shouting, "Fuck you," just to break the monotony. I asked Rick how the letter writing started. He sent me a questionnaire, stuff like favorite movie, and sent me his responses. I started to get a letter every month or so, and my girlfriend and I would just laugh. It was so weird. And all my friends thought it was wild. They couldn't believe I was writing this guy. They all wanted to, but nobody actually did. The people I know are talkers. No one's a walker. No one follows through with the things they say they're going to do. But I was really glad no one else wrote to him. I think the novelty would have worn off if 7 of my friends had said, "Dude, I got a letter from him too." Gacy letter to Rick. Hey, listeners in Listenerland, and for those of you on YouTube, maybe watching it, thanks for being here. This is the end of the free portion of this episode. If you would like the entire episode, gotta head over to Substack. That's smokeempodcast.substack.com. Become a paid subscriber. Many ways to do that. You get the full episodes and you get some other niceties and et cetera and et cetera. And if you are over here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button as well. We appreciate it. Tell your friends. Thanks.